So removing the steering wheel off some of these old tractors can actually be quite the nightmare. And I've read a lot of horror stories about people trying to get the steering wheels off, and they just had all kinds of issues. And I even seen some companies that make some tools that grab around here at the bottom of the steering wheel, kind of like a puller, but they're specially designed to pull the wheels off without tearing up the bottom of the steering wheel. And a regular puller, you just quite can't get the jaws around to grab it, and then sometimes they dent the bottom of the plastic. Now this steering wheel is actually in really bad shape. It's all cracked up. This is a donor tractor. As you can see, it is set outside for a long time. It's growing moss on the seat, but regardless, I need to pull the steering wheel off to get to some of the wiring and things underneath, try to get this thing resurrected and started. So the first thing you want to do is take a can of PB Blaster or WD-40, and you want to spray the nut extremely well. Let it sit. I actually sprayed this last night, let it sit, and as you can see, I sprayed it again, and we're going to let it sit, and then I'm going to come back and pull this nut off. Now the tools we're going to use is pretty simple. We're going to use a bearing puller, and I will put a link down below when I find a good deal on a bearing puller. I actually got this one at Harbor Freight, and it really wasn't that expensive, but these work great, and I'll show you why in a second. I am going to use an impact to remove this nut, and you could really use a breaker bar, or maybe you'll get lucky and use a regular ratchet, but an impact will take it off pretty quick, and then I'll show you how to hook all of this up. But let's go ahead and remove that nut. It's that simple. And the steering wheel will not come off. They're pretty tight, especially if they're old and they've been on here a while. Nobody's put any anti-seize or anything around the splines, but you do have to pull it off somehow. Some people put their knees up underneath the steering wheel and they take a hammer and they hit right here. You can do that. If you do, make sure you put the nut on it so you don't tear up the threads. Just make the nut kind of even, and if you do dent the threads, it'll kind of clean itself up when you back it back out. But other than that, I just rather use an impact and show you how to use this setup to get it off. So you're going to take this guy here, flip it upside down, and reach around here under the steering wheel like so, and then put your nuts back in. And by putting it upside down, it'll give a nice flat spot on the bottom of the steering wheel so it doesn't tear it up as you remove it. And then of course you want to put your nuts back on. And you don't have to tighten it down, you just need to snug it up just a little bit, like so. And now that you have the color on there like this, we'll put the rest together. And basically the kit comes with something that looks like that. You just sit that right there. You need a couple of long bolts, and if you take a look over here, you'll see that there's all kinds of accessories. We're just going to use these guys here, which should be plenty long enough. And we'll screw those down into that color like this. Okay. Get this nut and washer out of the way for now. Now it'll go like this. We're gonna do the same thing on this side. Put it down in there. Of course, my steering wheel's in the way. You know how this goes whenever you're recording, nothing ever goes right. Well, it's kind of one of those nights. So tighten that down, tighten this guy down. Then we put this guy on here, and then we'll put the washers on and the nuts. Okay, good enough. And then the next thing you want to do is there's another piece in here that looks like this, and you thread it down in here, and you want to make sure that the tip of this hits down inside the center of the shaft that the steering wheel is sitting on. And we'll snug it up a little bit, go back and snug these guys down. And now it's as simple as turning this bolt. Now as I'm spinning this down, and pulling the wheel off, I am going to take a hammer and whack the top a few times, and what that's going to do is it's going to kind of help loosen everything up, and jarring things around always helps loosen things up, and you're basically kind of giving it a good blow every now and then. Oh, and it popped off right away. So the steering wheel is off. All we got to do is loosen up all the other stuff. And lose the nuts and washers so you can go find them later. And as you can see, steering wheel is off. I do want to show you how it's designed so you can understand some of the trouble of getting the wheel off of this. So you can see there is a spline, and normally the spline gets all rusted and galled up and prevents the steering wheel from coming off. Now I'll be honest, the last tractor I pulled the steering wheel off, I really had to use the impact for quite a while, and I had to hammer on top of that that bolt that goes down and press it out. I bet I had to hammer on that maybe 10 different times, and it would just move it just a little bit, and then eventually it popped off. But you can see this was pretty easy. I didn't have a whole lot of troubles at all getting it off. But these kits are pretty inexpensive. I will put a link down below of a place that you can buy them. I'll probably try to find one on Amazon that's similar to this kit, but I did get this kit at Harbor Freight. So if you got a 20% off coupon or something, you get a really good deal there. They're kind of neat to have around. They come with all kinds of accessories and stuff, and you'll use them for other things, I'm sure. So it's more of an investment than a one-time use. I'm pretty sure you can probably also rent them at the auto store. I don't know if they rent them this big or not. I bet they do. Most places do. And most of the auto stores, when you rent them, you just, borrow them for a down payment, and when you bring the tool back, they give you all your money back. So it's a pretty good deal. And one of the questions I get all the time is, am I still using the air compressor that I built a few years ago? Yes, I am. I'll put a link up in the top or a card up in the top where you can click and take a look at it, but it has been wonderful. It's been one of the best air compressors I've ever owned, and I really can't complain. And the propane tank that I use welded to the tire worked out really well. So if you like these types of videos, the do-it-yourself type stuff, please like and subscribe. Take a look at some of my other videos, and you yourself might find something you might want to build.